The morning light filtered through the massive viewing ports of Harmony Point Station as Admiral Tom Blake reviewed the peace treaty documents for the 100th time. 3 decades of careful diplomacy had led to this moment, and he could hardly believe the Galactic Council was finally offering humanity full membership in their coalition. The coffee in his metal cup had grown cold hours ago, but he barely noticed as his tired eyes scanned each clause of the proposed agreement. Blake had spent most of his adult life building bridges between Earth and the 5 major alien species that controlled this sector of the galaxy. The insectoid hive minds with their clicking mandibles and compound eyes that never seemed to blink. The crystalline builders whose bodies rang like bells when they moved and whose thoughts traveled through harmonic frequencies. The gaseous drifters who existed as sentient clouds contained within environmental suits. The aquatic deep ones who required water-filled chambers and spoke in musical tones that human translators could barely interpret. Finally, the reptilian scales whose cold blood and calculating nature had made them natural diplomats and trade negotiators. Each species had initially viewed humanity with suspicion when Earth first achieved faster-than-light travel. Humans were young, aggressive, and unpredictable compared to civilizations that had existed for millennia. But Blake had worked tirelessly to prove that his species could be trusted partners rather than dangerous wildcards. Trade agreements had been signed. Cultural exchanges had taken place. Small conflicts had been resolved through negotiation rather than violence. Now the Council was offering something unprecedented: complete integration into their society. Access to their most advanced technologies. Shared defense agreements that would protect Earth from any external threats. All they asked in return was for humanity to contribute their military expertise to the greater good and decommission their independent war fleet. Blake understood the logic behind the request. Why should every species maintain separate military forces when they could pool their resources for maximum efficiency? The Council argued that humanity's warships, while impressive for such a young civilization, were ultimately redundant in a galaxy protected by their combined fleets. It made economic sense. It promoted unity. It eliminated the possibility of future conflicts between member species, yet something nagged at the back of Blake's mind as he prepared for the final negotiation session. The Council representatives had been unusually eager to conclude these talks. They had made concessions on trade routes and resource sharing that seemed almost too generous. When Blake had suggested taking more time to review the terms with Earth's leadership, the hive mind delegate had clicked its mandibles in what the translator interpreted as impatience. The conference room filled with the familiar sounds and smells of interspecies diplomacy as the Council members took their positions around the circular table. The builders' crystalline forms caught and refracted the station's artificial lighting into dancing rainbows across the walls. The drifters' environmental suits hummed softly as they maintained the precise atmospheric conditions their gaseous bodies required. The deep one's water chambers bubbled gently while their occupants moved with fluid grace. The scale's reptilian eyes fixed on Blake with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. High Chancellor Mort, the hive mind who served as the Council's primary spokesperson, gestured with one of its 4 arms toward the treaty documents. Its voice emerged from the translation device as a mechanical approximation of human speech, but Blake had learned to read the subtle body language that revealed the creature's true emotions. Admiral Blake, your species has proven itself worthy of full membership in our coalition. We have watched humanity's development with great interest and believe the time has come to formalize our relationship. This treaty represents not just an agreement between governments, but a bond between civilizations that will last for millennia. Blake nodded respectfully, though his diplomatic instincts continued to whisper warnings. High Chancellor, Earth is honored by this offer. However, I must transmit these terms to our High Command for final approval. The decommissioning of our fleet is not a decision I can make unilaterally. The reaction was subtle but unmistakable. The builder's harmonics shifted to a slightly higher frequency. The drifters' forms seemed to compress within their suits. The deep one's musical tones carried an undertone of discord. The scale's pupils contracted to thin vertical slits. Chancellor Mort's mandibles clicked rapidly before the translation came through. Of course, Admiral. We understand the importance of following proper procedures. However, we hope Earth will recognize the urgency of this matter. There are threats in the outer galaxy that require our immediate attention. The sooner we can integrate humanity's military assets into our defensive framework, the better we can protect all of our worlds. Blake found himself wondering what threats the Chancellor was referring to. In 30 years of diplomatic contact, no external enemies had ever been mentioned. The galaxy seemed remarkably peaceful under the Council's guidance. Perhaps that was exactly why they had been so successful. The session continued for several more hours as technical details were discussed and minor adjustments were made to various clauses. Blake's team of advisors raised questions about implementation timelines and logistical concerns. The Council representatives answered each query with practiced efficiency, as if they had anticipated every possible objection. As the meeting drew to a close, Blake stood and bowed formally to each delegation. I will transmit these documents to Earth immediately and await further instructions. On behalf of humanity, I thank the Council for their generous offer of partnership. Chancellor Mort's compound eyes seemed to glitter as it returned the bow. We eagerly await your response, Admiral. The galaxy will be a safer place when our species stand united. Blake gathered his materials and headed toward the communication center to prepare his transmission to Earth. The corridors of Harmony Point were designed to accommodate all member species with varying gravity fields, atmospheric compositions, and lighting spectrums, creating a patchwork of environmental zones. Human areas maintained Earth normal conditions, providing a small taste of home in the vast emptiness of space. As he composed his message to Fleet Command, Blake tried to shake off his lingering doubts. Perhaps his concerns were simply the product of 3 decades spent preparing for the worst-case scenario. Maybe humanity had finally found its place among the stars. Through peaceful cooperation rather than military strength, he sealed the transmission and sent it toward Earth, unaware that his words were being intercepted and analyzed by Council intelligence services. The message would reach its destination, but other communications were already traveling faster toward the outer systems where massive fleets waited in the darkness between stars. The Council had spent years preparing for this moment, and humanity's response would determine whether the next phase would be integration or elimination. Deep space was supposed to be empty, but Captain Roy Fisher had learned to read the subtle signs that revealed hidden activity in the void between stars. The reconnaissance vessel Watchdog drifted silently through the outer reaches of the Kepler system, its advanced sensors sweeping for any anomaly that might indicate danger to human colonies. Fisher had been running long-range patrols for 15 years, and his instincts had kept his crew alive. Through encounters that would have destroyed less experienced ships, the first warning came from Ensign Beth Murphy at the sensor station. Her voice carried a tension that made Fisher immediately alert despite the routine nature of their mission. Captain, I'm detecting unusual gravitational distortions approximately 40 light minutes from our position. The patterns don't match any known natural phenomena. Fisher moved to her station and studied the readouts. Mass shadows were appearing and disappearing in seemingly random locations, but his trained eye recognized the telltale signature of ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Individual vessels were nearly impossible to detect at this range, but large formations created gravitational ripples that sensitive equipment could identify. How many contacts are we looking at, Murphy? The young officer's fingers danced across her console as she refined the sensor sweep. Sir, if these readings are accurate, we're looking at fleet-sized formations. Multiple groups converging from different vectors. I count at least 30 separate gravitational signatures, each one indicating hundreds of ships. Fisher felt his blood turn cold. No single species in the galaxy maintained fleets of that magnitude, and the Council had never mentioned any joint military exercises in this sector. The Kepler system was technically neutral space, far enough from Earth to avoid triggering any defensive responses, but close enough to serve as a staging area for operations in human territory. Set condition yellow throughout the ship. I want all passive sensors active and our signature minimized. We're going to get closer and see what's really going on out there. The watchdog crept forward through space, its crew working with the quiet efficiency that came from years of training and trust. Fisher had handpicked every person on this ship, looking for specialists who could think quickly under pressure and maintain their composure when faced with the unknown. Today he was grateful for their skills as they approached what might be the largest alien fleet ever assembled. As they closed the distance, the sensor picture became clearer and more terrifying. The gravitational distortions resolved into distinct fleet formations, each one identifiable by the unique propulsion signatures that marked different alien technologies. Hive mind vessels moved in perfect synchronization, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with organic energy. Builder ships rang with harmonic frequencies that traveled through space itself. Drifter craft appeared as ghostly shadows that seemed to phase in and out of normal space. Deep One vessels created whirlpools of distorted space-time around their exotic matter cores. Scale ships moved with predatory grace, their stealth systems making them difficult to track even at close range. "Captain," Murphy whispered, as if speaking too loudly might somehow alert the alien armada to their presence. "I'm reading over 10,000 individual ships. This isn't just a fleet, sir. This is an invasion force." Fisher stared at the tactical display, trying to process the implications of what they were seeing. The Council species had never cooperated on this scale before. Their individual military forces were formidable, but they had always maintained separate commands and conflicting priorities. For them to combine into a single armada suggested a threat that required their complete attention. "Any idea what their target might be, Murphy?" Before she could answer, communications specialist James Wright spoke up from his station. "Captain, I'm intercepting encrypted transmissions between the fleet elements. Our computers are working on decryption, but some of these codes are familiar. They match diplomatic protocols we've seen during council meetings." Fisher nodded grimly. "Put everything we have on those intercepts. I want to know what they're planning." The next 30 minutes passed with agonizing slowness as the watchdog's computers worked to crack the alien encryption systems. Fisher paced the small bridge, weighing their options. They were far too outnumbered to engage the alien fleet directly. But they couldn't simply retreat without learning more about the threat to human space. Wright suddenly straightened at his console. "Sir, we've broken through one of their communication channels. You need to hear this." The bridge speakers crackled to life with the mechanical voice of a translation system, converting alien languages into human speech. Multiple species were participating in what appeared to be a command conference, their words confirming Fisher's worst fears. "All fleet elements report ready for Phase 2 implementation. Human defensive positions have been confirmed through diplomatic intelligence. Their main battle groups remain scattered on patrol duties as expected. Integration protocols remain the preferred option, but extinction parameters are approved if resistance levels exceed acceptable thresholds. Remember, the human admiral Blake and his staff on Harmony Point must be contained until operations are complete. We cannot allow them to warn their homeworld of our true intentions." Fisher felt sick as the full scope of the Council's deception became clear. The peace negotiations had been a trap, designed to keep humanity's attention focused on diplomacy while this massive armada moved into position. Blake and his diplomatic team were prisoners, and Earth had no idea that invasion fleets were already moving toward human space. "Right, get me a secure channel to Earth immediately. Priority Alpha transmission." As the communications officer worked to establish contact with Fleet Command, Fisher continued listening to the alien transmissions. The details that emerged painted a picture of betrayal that went far beyond simple military aggression. The Council had been systematically poisoning humanity's relationships with other species, spreading propaganda that portrayed humans as dangerous expansionists who threatened galactic stability. Dozens of neutral civilizations had been convinced to deny humans refuge or assistance when the conflict began. Trade routes had been quietly redirected away from human colonies. Scientific exchanges had been cancelled under various pretexts. For years, the Council had been isolating humanity in preparation for this moment. Captain, I have Fleet Admiral Santos on priority channel. Fisher took a deep breath before activating the transmission. Admiral, this is Captain Fisher aboard the Watchdog. I am transmitting tactical data on an imminent threat to Earth. The Council species have assembled an invasion fleet of over 10,000 ships currently positioned in the Kepler system. Admiral Blake and his diplomatic staff appear to be prisoners. On Harmony Point Station. The response came through clearly despite the vast distance. Captain Fisher, confirm your transmission? Are you certain of these numbers? Confirmed, Admiral. We have visual contact with multiple fleet formations and have intercepted their communications. They refer to Admiral Blake's peace negotiations as a diversion tactic. Their intention is either forced integration or complete extinction of humanity. A long pause followed before Santos responded. Understood, Captain. Continue monitoring the situation and report any changes in their deployment. We're implementing Protocol Omega immediately. Fisher had heard rumors about Protocol Omega during his years of service, but he had assumed it was merely a theoretical contingency plan. If the Admiral was activating it now, humanity's situation was even more desperate than he had imagined. What are your orders regarding the diplomatic staff on Harmony Point, Admiral? Monitor the station, but do not attempt rescue operations at this time. We need every available ship for the defense of Earth. Admiral Blake knew the risks when he accepted this assignment. The transmission ended, leaving Fisher and his crew alone in space with the largest alien armada in galactic history. As they watched, the fleet formations began moving toward the inner systems with purpose and coordination that spoke of months of careful planning. Fisher ordered his ship to maintain surveillance while staying beyond detection range. Whatever Protocol Omega entailed, he hoped it was enough to save his species from the betrayal that was now descending upon them from the stars. Fleet Admiral Maria Santos had hoped she would never need to speak the words that would activate humanity's most classified contingency plan. Protocol Omega had been developed in secret over 3 decades, born from the paranoid conviction that peaceful coexistence with alien species might one day prove impossible. Now, as she stood in the war room buried deep beneath Earth's surface, surrounded by displays showing the approaching Council armada, those fears were proving justified. All department heads, confirm Protocol Omega authorization. Santos spoke into her headset, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was unleashing. The responses came quickly from locations across Earth and throughout human space. Military installations that had been disguised as research facilities acknowledged their true purpose. Civilian contractors revealed themselves as components of a vast military-industrial complex. Mining operations in asteroid fields admitted to being weapons manufacturing centers. Even the peaceful agricultural colonies had been secretly preparing for this day. General Pat Williams, head of strategic operations, activated the main tactical display that dominated the war room central wall. What appeared was not the modest human fleet that the Council believed existed, but a comprehensive military infrastructure that had been hidden from alien observers for decades. Phase 1 assets are coming online now, Admiral. All deep space. Monitoring stations are switching to active scanning modes. Asteroid belt defensive platforms are powering up their primary weapon systems. The decoy merchant vessels are revealing their true armaments. Santos nodded as she watched the display update in real time. Red icons appeared throughout the solar system as weapons platforms. Missile launchers and defensive installations announced their readiness. The asteroid belt, which alien visitors had always seen as a simple mining region, transformed before their eyes into a fortified defensive line bristling with railguns and particle beam weapons. What's the status on the Ghost? Fleet, General? Williams consulted his datapad before responding. All 300 vessels are at full readiness. Captain Lisa Shun reports that the Revenant and her sister ships are prepared to begin hunting operations on your command. The fleet is currently dispersed across 47 different hiding locations, invisible to long-range sensors. The Ghost fleet represented the pinnacle of human military engineering, incorporating technologies that had been reverse-engineered from captured or traded alien artifacts. While the Council believed they understood human capabilities based on the older vessels they had observed, these new ships were generations ahead of anything the aliens had seen. Each Ghost ship was equipped with adaptive armor that could reconfigure itself to resist different types of weapons. Their propulsion systems allowed for rapid acceleration and deceleration that would crush the crew of any other species, but humans had developed inertial compensation systems that turned their biological fragility into a tactical advantage. Most importantly, they carried AI-assisted targeting systems that had analyzed 3 decades of alien combat data. "Begin Phase 2 implementation," Santos ordered. "I want every civilian in the system evacuated to designated safe zones. All military personnel are to report to their combat stations immediately. And someone get me a direct line to Captain Fisher on the Watchdog." The war room erupted into controlled chaos as officers began executing orders that had been rehearsed countless times but never implemented. Emergency broadcasts went out to every civilian transport in the system, directing them to predetermined shelter locations on Earth's moon and the outer planet colonies. Merchant vessels suddenly sprouted weapon systems as their crews, revealed years of military training. Fisher's voice crackled through the communications system from his position in deep space. "Admiral, the alien fleet is accelerating toward the inner system. Based on their current speed, they'll reach Earth orbit in approximately 18 hours. Understood, Captain. Continue monitoring but prepare to withdraw if they detect your position. We need real-time intelligence on their movements." Santos turned her attention to the massive holographic display that showed the entire solar system. The approaching Council fleet appeared as a red tide of hostile contacts, overwhelming in their numbers but moving in formations that suggested they expected minimal resistance. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Colonel Dave Kim, commander of the Asteroid Belt Defenses, reported in from Ceres Base. "Admiral, all mining platforms are fully operational as weapons emplacements. We have 3,000 railgun batteries and 1,500 missile launchers dispersed throughout the belt. The enemy will have to run a gauntlet to reach the inner planets." The genius of humanity's defensive strategy lay not in meeting the alien fleet in a traditional space battle, but in turning the entire solar system into an integrated weapons platform. Every asteroid, every seemingly innocent space station, every cargo hauler had been designed with dual purposes. When the Council invasion began, they would find themselves fighting not just ships, but the very environment around Earth. Dr. Ann Foster, head of the Classified Weapons Development Program, provided an update on their most exotic defensive systems. "Admiral, the solar collection arrays are ready to redirect concentrated energy beams toward enemy formations. The gravitational manipulators hidden near Jupiter can create space-time distortions to disrupt their navigation systems. Our self-replicating minefields are already beginning to spread throughout the likely approach vectors." Santos smiled grimly as she considered how the Council would react to facing weapons they had never imagined. While other species had focused on building larger and more powerful ships, humans had spent decades thinking about how to kill things more efficiently. Their approach to warfare was uniquely creative, born from a species that had spent millennia finding new ways to destroy each other. "What's the status on our psychological warfare preparations?" Lieutenant Colonel Mike Reed stepped forward with a datapad containing humanity's most sensitive intelligence assessments. "All alien communication frequencies are being monitored. We're ready to broadcast the intercepted Council transmissions proving their genocidal intentions. Every neutral species in the galaxy will receive evidence of the conspiracy against humanity. We've also prepared targeted propaganda designed to exploit the political divisions within each Council species." The plan was ambitious and desperate in equal measure. Humanity couldn't match the Council's numbers, but they could turn the galaxy against their enemies by revealing the truth about this unprovoked aggression. Dozens of species that had remained neutral in galactic politics would be forced to choose sides when presented with evidence of the Council's willingness to commit genocide. Captain Chun's voice suddenly burst through the communication system. From her position aboard the ghost ship Revenant, Admiral Santos were detecting the first Council scout ships entering the outer system. They're moving in loose formation and appear to be conducting reconnaissance sweeps. Acknowledged, Captain. Begin Phase 3 operations. Take your ships hunting. Throughout the solar system, 300 of humanity's most advanced warships began moving from their hiding places among asteroids, behind planetary rings, and within the coronas of gas giants. They moved like shadows, their stealth systems making them nearly invisible to alien sensors, while their crews prepared for the kind of warfare their species had perfected over millennia of conflict. The Ghost Fleet had been designed with one primary mission: to prove that humans were the most dangerous predators in the galaxy when their survival was threatened. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy vessels 10 times their size, and their crews had been trained to fight with the desperate creativity that had made humanity the dominant species on their homeworld. Santos watched the tactical display as red and blue icons began moving toward inevitable collision. In less than 18 hours, the Battle of Sol would begin, and the galaxy would learn whether humanity's bet on superior tactics and technology could overcome impossible odds. All stations, this is Fleet Admiral Santos. Today we face an enemy that believes our species should be eliminated from the galaxy. They think we are weak because we chose diplomacy over aggression. They think we are naive because we trusted their promises of peace. They are about to discover exactly how wrong they are about humanity. The war room fell silent as every officer focused on their displays and preparations. Outside, the vast machinery of human civilization was transforming itself from a peaceful society into the most efficient killing machine the galaxy had ever seen. The first alien ships to die never knew what killed them. Commander David Park led his squadron of ghost fighters through the outer edge of the Council's invasion fleet, their advanced stealth systems rendering them invisible until the moment they struck. Park had spent 5 years studying alien ship designs, looking for weaknesses that could be exploited by smaller, faster human vessels. Today, that knowledge became the weapon that turned a hopeless battle into something resembling a fair fight. Target their sensor arrays first, Park whispered into his communications system as his fighters approached a massive hive mind vessel. Blind them before they know we're here. The human fighters moved like wasps attacking a bear, too small and quick to track effectively, but carrying weapons specifically designed to cripple larger opponents. Park's ship fired a concentrated beam that sliced through the alien vessel's primary sensor dome, leaving the huge ship effectively blind while its crew struggled to understand what had happened. Similar attacks were taking place throughout the Council fleet as 300 ghost ships emerged from hiding to begin the most one-sided opening engagement in military history. Captain Lisa Chin coordinated the assault from her command ship Revenant, her tactical display showing dozens of alien vessels suffering critical damage before they could even identify their attackers. All ghost units, this is Chun, execute pattern. Delta, hit their command ships and communication relays. Make them deaf and dumb before they can coordinate a response. The Council fleet had expected to face a few hundred human warships in traditional formation combat. Instead, they found themselves under attack by an enemy that refused to play by the established rules of space warfare. Human ships appeared from impossible angles, struck with devastating precision, then vanished before return fire could be coordinated. High Chancellor Mort's compound eyes registered confusion as his flagship's bridge erupted in alarms. The massive hive mind vessel Unity's Dawn had been designed to coordinate the activities of thousands of smaller ships, but now its communication systems were failing one by one as human attackers systematically destroyed each relay. Report! Mort clicked his mandibles in frustration as his subordinates scrambled to assess the damage. Unknown enemy vessels are attacking throughout the fleet. His tactical officer responded through harmonics that betrayed panic. They appeared to be using advanced stealth technology that our sensors cannot penetrate. Our losses are already approaching 300 ships. Mort struggled to comprehend how such massive losses were possible so quickly. The human fleet was supposed to be scattered and outnumbered 50 to 1. Yet somehow they were inflicting casualties at a rate that suggested either superior numbers or impossibly advanced weapons. The answer came when the asteroid belt itself came alive with weapons fire. What the Council had assumed were simple mining operations revealed themselves as the largest fixed fortification system ever constructed. Thousands of railgun platforms opened fire simultaneously, sending streams of hypervelocity projectiles through the alien formations. Admiral Santos watched from Earth's command center as the first phase of her defensive plan exceeded all expectations. The Ghost Fleet's surgical strikes had disrupted the alien command structure, while the asteroid belt defenses were savaging their main formations. But she knew this was only the beginning of what would be a desperate fight for humanity's survival. General Williams, initiate Phase 4, release the mine swarms, and activate the Jupiter gravity wells. Throughout the solar system, weapons that existed only in theoretical studies became terrifying reality. Self-replicating mines that had been seeded along the Council's approach routes began multiplying exponentially, creating expanding fields of destruction that adapted to enemy countermeasures. Near Jupiter, gravitational manipulation devices created space-time distortions that pulled alien ships out of formation and into collision courses with each other. Captain Chion's Revenant had positioned itself within the corona of the Sun, using a massive star's radiation to mask its approach toward the Council flagship. Her ship's experimental armor could withstand the intense heat for limited periods, giving her access to attack angles that no enemy would anticipate. All weapons locked on target, her tactical officer reported. The Unity's Dawn is directly ahead, range closing to optimal firing distance. Fire everything we have, Chun ordered. This ends now. The Revenant emerged from the Sun's corona. Like an avenging angel, its weapon systems fully charged and aimed at the heart of the Council fleet. Particle beams, quantum torpedoes, and kinetic penetrators struck the massive alien flagship in a concentrated barrage that overwhelmed its shields and tore through its hull. But Chun's real target wasn't the ship itself, it was the communications array that controlled the fleet's coordination systems. As her weapons carved through the Unity's Dawn superstructure, she broadcast a signal on all frequencies that every ship in the system could receive. The transmission contained the intercepted Council communications that revealed their genocidal intentions, their plans to eliminate humanity regardless of any surrender, and their systematic campaign to isolate Earth from potential allies. Within minutes, every neutral species in the galaxy was receiving proof that the Council's war was not about defense or justice, but about extermination. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Several Council species had populations that opposed military aggression, and learning that their leaders had committed them to genocide sparked internal revolts. Hive mind vessels began experiencing coordination failures as their collective consciousness fractured under moral conflict. Builder ships rang with discordant harmonics as their crews debated the ethics of their mission. Commander Park had managed to infiltrate the Unity's Dawn during the chaos of Chen's attack, leading a boarding party through hull breaches created by the human assault. His team moved through the alien ship's corridors with the efficiency of predators hunting wounded prey, seeking the command center where High Chancellor Mort was trying to maintain control of his disintegrating fleet. "Remember, we need him alive," Park told his soldiers as they approached the bridge. "The galaxy needs to hear what he has to say about this unprovoked attack." The battle for the ship's bridge was brief but intense. Hive mind warriors fought with desperate fury, their insectoid forms clicking and chittering as they tried to protect their leader. But they were facing human soldiers who had trained for decades, specifically to fight in close quarters against alien opponents. Park's team used weapons designed to exploit the weaknesses of each Council species. Sonic disruptors that interfered with hive mind coordination, electromagnetic pulses that damaged builder crystalline structures, chemical agents that disrupted the environmental suits of drifter warriors. Temperature weapons that sent scale reptilians into hibernation shock within 30 minutes of beginning their assault. Park soldiers had control of the Unity's dawns. Command Center and High Chancellor Mort was their prisoner. The alien leader's compound eyes showed something humans had never seen before in a council representative: fear. "You have violated every treaty governing civilized warfare," Mort clicked through his translator. "This attack on diplomatic representatives will not be forgotten by the galaxy." Park smiled coldly as he activated his recording equipment. "Chancellor, the galaxy is about to learn exactly who violated what treaties. You're going to tell them about your plans to exterminate humanity, your lies about peaceful integration, and your conspiracy to isolate Earth from potential allies." As the interrogation began, the battle for the solar system was reaching its climax. The Council fleet, demoralized by massive casualties and confused by the loss of central command, was beginning to break apart. Some ships were retreating toward the outer system, others were surrendering to human forces. A few were turning their weapons on former allies as internal conflicts erupted. Admiral Santos allowed herself a moment of satisfaction as she watched the tactical display. Humanity had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious through superior tactics, advanced technology, and the simple refusal to accept defeat. But she knew the real test was yet to come. Winning this battle was only the first step in reshaping the galaxy's balance of power. The Ghost Fleet regrouped near Earth's orbit, their hulls scarred by combat but their crews victorious. Captain Chin's voice came through the communication system with news that would determine humanity's future. "Admiral Santos, we have confirmed the capture of High Chancellor Mort and his senior staff. The Council fleet is in full retreat, but our long-range sensors are detecting additional alien formations moving toward human space. This was just the first wave." Santos nodded grimly. The Battle of Sol was won, but the war for humanity's survival was just beginning. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, Fleet Admiral Maria Santos stood on the observation deck of humanity's newest flagship, the Defiance, as it maintained orbit around the hive-mind homeworld of Nexus Prime. Below them, the planet's sprawling biomechanical cities pulsed with subdued activity while human marines maintained security checkpoints at every major population center. The sight would have been unthinkable a year ago, but the galaxy had learned harsh lessons about the consequences of betraying humanity. The transformation had begun immediately after the Council's defeat at Earth, rather than pursuing revenge. Against their attackers, Santos had made a decision that surprised even her own officers. Instead of destroying the retreating alien fleets, humanity chose to follow them home and dictate the terms of a new galactic order. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Deep One homeworld," Communications Officer Beth Murphy reported. From her station, "Their planetary council is requesting permission to address the reformed Galactic Assembly." Santos nodded thoughtfully. The Deep Ones had been among the first to recognize the futility of continued resistance once human warships appeared in their home system. Their aquatic civilization had always been more philosophical than militaristic, and they had quickly accepted the necessity of fundamental political change. "Grant them speaking privileges for tomorrow's session." "What's the status of the other worlds?" "The Builder Crystal Cities remain under full occupation, but their populations are cooperating with reconstruction efforts. The Drifter gas giant habitats are surrounded by our monitoring stations, and their leaders continue to express willingness to participate in the new democratic framework. The Scale homeworld is proving more resistant, but their military capabilities have been completely neutralized." The new galactic order that was emerging from humanity's victory bore little resemblance to the old council system. Where once 5 species had controlled interstellar politics through military might and economic manipulation, now dozens of previously marginalized civilizations were finding their voices in a truly representative government. Captain Lisa Chun entered the observation deck, her uniform bearing the new insignia of the Galactic Protection Force. Her ghost ship, Revenant, had been converted from a stealth warrior into a diplomatic escort, reflecting humanity's transition from desperate defenders to galactic peacekeepers. "Admiral, The War Crimes Tribunal is ready to begin proceedings against the former council leadership. High Chancellor Mort and his co-conspirators are being transported to the neutral station New Harmony for trial. Santos turned from the viewport to face her subordinate. The trials had been delayed for months while evidence was gathered and witnesses were interviewed, but now the galaxy would finally learn the full extent of the Council's crimes. Not just their attempted genocide of humanity, but decades of suppression, manipulation and exploitation of weaker species throughout their territory. Any word from Admiral Blake? Joan's expression softened slightly. Blake had been rescued from Harmony Point during the immediate aftermath of the battle, but his ordeal as a prisoner had left him changed. The diplomat who had spent 30 years building bridges between species now struggled with the knowledge that his efforts had been manipulated from the beginning. He's agreed to testify at the tribunal, but he's requested assignment to the Colonial Defense Force afterward. He says he's done with interspecies diplomacy. The irony was not lost on Santos. Blake's diplomatic skills had inadvertently provided the Council with the intelligence they needed to plan their attack, but his sacrifice had also given humanity the warning that saved their species. He deserved whatever peace he could find. In his remaining years, Commander David Park approached from the lift, carrying a datapad containing the latest intelligence reports. His capture of High Chancellor Mort had made him something of a celebrity throughout human space, but he had requested to remain in active service rather than accept the administrative promotion he had earned. Admiral, we're detecting unusual activity in the outer spiral regions. Several previously unknown species are requesting contact with the Reformed Assembly. It appears that news of the Council's defeat has encouraged civilizations that had been hiding from galactic politics to reveal themselves. Santos reviewed the intelligence data with growing amazement. The galaxy was far more populated than anyone had realized, but most species had chosen isolation rather than risk attracting the Council's attention. With humanity's protection force now patrolling the major trade routes, dozens of new civilizations were emerging from centuries of self-imposed exile. How many new species are we talking about, Commander? Current estimates suggest at least 40 distinct civilizations that have been monitoring galactic events from hidden locations. Some of them possess technologies that rival or exceed anything we've seen from the former Council species. They remained hidden because they feared becoming targets for conquest or forced integration. The implications were staggering. The galaxy had never been dominated by 5 species through superior evolution or natural leadership. Instead, the Council had maintained control through systematic intimidation and the deliberate suppression of potential rivals. Humanity's victory had not just defeated an invasion force, it had liberated an entire galaxy from centuries of tyranny. Dr. Ann Foster's voice crackled through the ship's communication system from her laboratory deep within the Defiance's hull. Admiral, I'm receiving some fascinating data from our new allies. Several of these emerging species have developed defensive technologies that explain how they remained hidden for so long. We're looking at advances in stealth systems, dimensional manipulation, and even temporal displacement fields. Santos smiled as she considered the possibilities. Humanity had won their war through superior tactics and desperate innovation, but now they were gaining access to technologies that would ensure no species could ever again threaten galactic peace through military aggression. The balance of power was shifting in ways that would make future conflicts both unlikely and impossible to sustain. What's the latest from Earth, Dr. Foster? The reconstruction efforts are proceeding ahead of schedule. The asteroid belt fortifications are being converted into research stations where human and alien scientists can work together on peaceful applications of military technology. The Ghost Fleet manufacturing facilities are being retooled to produce exploration vessels for the new species joining the assembly. The transformation of humanity's war machine into a force for galactic exploration and development had been one of Santos's first priorities after the victory. The same shipyards that had produced weapons of unprecedented destruction were now building vessels designed to explore the unknown regions of space and establish peaceful contact with isolated civilizations. Captain Roy Fisher's voice joined a conversation from his position aboard the rebuilt Watchdog, now serving as a long-range diplomatic vessel. Admiral, I'm approaching the former scale military stronghold at Omega Station. Their leadership has agreed to discuss complete disarmament in exchange for representation in the Reformed Assembly. The scales had proven to be the most stubborn of the former council species, their reptilian nature making them naturally resistant to change. But even they had eventually recognized that cooperation offered better prospects than continued isolation. Their military expertise was being redirected toward training the new Galactic Protection Force, turning former enemies into valuable allies. Proceed with negotiations, Captain, but maintain full security protocols. The scales are pragmatic, but they're also opportunistic. Suntus returned her attention to the viewport, where the hive mind homeworld continued its daily rhythms under human oversight. The insectoid species had adapted to their new circumstances with surprising flexibility, their collective consciousness allowing them to process and accept change more rapidly than individualistic species. Many of their biotechnological innovations were already being integrated into human ships and installations. The communication system chimed with an incoming transmission from Earth's new planetary council. The voice belonged to President Susan Wright, who had been elected to lead humanity's civilian government while the military focused on galactic security concerns. Admiral Santos, the preliminary results from the galactic census are remarkable. We're looking at over 200 inhabited systems that were previously unknown to the Council. The population of intelligent species in this galaxy appears to be at least 10 times larger than we originally estimated. The numbers were almost beyond comprehension. Humanity had spent decades believing they were newcomers to a galaxy dominated by ancient and powerful civilizations. In reality, they had stumbled into a cosmic prison where most species lived in fear of attracting attention from their oppressors. The true galaxy was vast, diverse, and full of potential for peaceful cooperation. What's the status of the war crimes trials, Madam President? High Chancellor Mort and his fellow conspirators have been found guilty on all charges. The evidence of their plans for genocide was overwhelming, and testimony from their own species confirmed the systematic nature of their crimes. The tribunal has sentenced them to life imprisonment, with the understanding that they will serve as a reminder of what happens when any species attempts to dominate others through force. Santos felt a sense of closure at the news. Justice for the councils. Crimes had been swift but fair, conducted according to legal principles that all species could recognize and respect. The trials had also served an important educational purpose, demonstrating to the galaxy that the new order would be based on law rather than might. The months following humanity's victory had been filled with challenges that no military academy had prepared Santos to face. Transforming from a defensive force into a galactic peacekeeping organization required skills that went far beyond tactical planning and strategic thinking. Every decision carried consequences that would affect billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. But perhaps the most important change had been in humanity itself. The species that had once been dismissed as young and aggressive had proven their capacity for wisdom and restraint. When offered the opportunity to rule the galaxy through superior military force, they had instead chosen to create a system where every civilization could find its voice. Commander Park approached with a final intelligence update. Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting the approach of a delegation from the Andromeda Galaxy. They're requesting permission to observe our Reformed Assembly proceedings. Apparently, news of the political changes here has spread beyond our local galactic group. Santos shook her head in amazement. The implications of intergalactic contact were staggering, but she was beginning to realize that humanity's victory over the Council had resonated far beyond the boundaries of local space. Species throughout the universe were learning that tyranny could be defeated and that cooperation offered better prospects than conquest. Grant them observer status and assign a full diplomatic escort. If other galaxies are interested in our political model, we want to make the best possible impression. As the day cycle ended on the hive mind homeworld below, Santos reflected on the remarkable transformation that had occurred since the Battle of Sol. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged as the galaxy's protectors. Former enemies had become allies. Hidden civilizations had revealed themselves. The universe itself seemed to be opening up new possibilities for peace and cooperation. The communication system activated one final time with a transmission from Admiral Blake, now serving with the Colonial Defense Force on the frontier worlds. His voice carried a warmth that had been absent since his rescue from Harmony Point. "Maria, I wanted you to know that the first joint human-alien colony has been successfully established in the Tau Ceti system. Representatives from 12 different species are working together to build something that would have been impossible under the old council system. We're calling it Hope Station." Santos smiled as she considered the symbolism. Hope Station represented everything humanity had fought to achieve: a future where species could work together as equals rather than being dominated by fear and oppression. The galaxy was finally free to reach its true potential. "Acknowledged, Tom. Keep up the good work out there. The galaxy is counting on all of us to make this new system work." As the Defiance continued its orbit around the former enemy homeworld, Santos began planning for the challenges that lay ahead. The reformed Galactic Assembly would face countless tests in the years to come, but humanity had proven that even the most desperate situations could be overcome through courage, innovation, and the refusal to accept defeat. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Never again would any species be allowed to threaten others with extinction. Humanity was the guardian now, and they would ensure that the universe remained a place where all civilizations could flourish in peace.